Well, hello again guys and girls. This is the new V50 Elite from Akaso. This is the upgraded version of the Akaso V50, good camera. The V50 Elite, which is the top of the range model now and features 4K at 60 frames a second, wrist remote and a load of other stuff. But before we take a look at the camera, we've got to get this camera out of the clip on the top of the case. They've actually put a locking tab on here, so before you can actually pull the camera out of this bracket, whoops, got to pull that little tab out, just in case you didn't know that. And of course, to get these clips out, what you do is you squeeze that end of the sliding bracket, which isn't very easy when it's on a box, but there you go. Right, so here we have the new high-spec Akaso V50 Elite. Now, I've tested a couple of cameras from Akaso. They've been extremely good. This is the top of the range model now, which is around the £140 mark. I've not investigated it fully yet, but I do know it's got 4K at 60 frames a second, which is similar to your GoPros and so on. That's undoubtedly, it's got EIS. It records 1080 at 120 frames a second instead of the normal 60 frames a second. I can see it comes with 2 batteries, good range of accessories, including a wrist remote. And I'm not sure what this is. I'm quite excited about that. Oh, it's a little external charger. Right, that's useful because you've got 2 batteries. That means you can externally charge. So I will get it out of the case, like so. Oh, doesn't want to come, doesn't want to come. Yes, it does. Take a look at that in a second. But let's take a quick look at the accessories. Waterproof case, looks nicely made, probably waterproof to God knows what. You've got 2 backs with it here, one ventilated, which means you'll get some sound when you're using it in a case, if you don't need it to be totally waterproof. Incidentally, the way you get these in and out is you just pop that out, but I'm not going to do it now because it always scares me. But there's a slot there. Right, so you've got waterproof case, 2 backs. Incidentally, when you close a waterproof case, especially for the first few times, make sure you squeeze it when it's got the camera in before you do up the clip, because the gaskets are really tight, and if you don't squeeze it, you're liable to break the bracket. What else have you got? A couple of tripod mounts here, male and female, USB charging cable, 2 batteries as I mentioned, there's another standoff there, cable ties, spare sticky pads with a little wire strap there for securing the camera, a couple of straps. Now, the idea of these straps is if you want to strap the camera on rather than stick it on, you've got slots here in these mounts so you can strap it to your arm, leg, whatever you want to do. If you're not familiar with this kind of stuff, and the way it works is you get a couple of stick-on brackets here and spare pads. Now, these go onto your helmet or skateboard or whatever. Brackets slide in, and then you use the standoffs in between the mounting bracket and the case to connect the camera. Or of course you could put a tripod mount on and screw the camera straight onto the tripod mount. Plus, what else have you got? You've got a quick start leaflet, and I was looking for the manual, and in fact what you've got to do to get the manual is either go to the website and download it or scan the QR code, and you can get free QR code scanners on the internet. That's what I've got on my phone. So, and coming to the camera, as I said, I've tested a good few of theirs. Not sure if it's touchscreen, I'll soon find out. I do know it's got gyro stabilization, and I know it's got 4K at 60 frames a second. So I'm going to find a card for it. So I'll get it on charge, have a quick look at the manual online. Oh, of course, first thing you've got to do is slip in a battery. Look inside there, there's 3 little tabs. Look inside and look on the battery. You can see there are 3 little tags, so that obviously goes in so that the tabs connect with the internals. That's that. So I've got a card here. I'm using Samsung 64 gig Evo Plus, which is U3, which is the high speed, and that goes in. Let's see, logo side, yes I'm right, logo side towards the screen. And it's always a good idea, once you've charged it, to format the card in the camera, and then you know it's formatted properly. And the way to do that is you go into settings, but I'll show you that when we come to take a closer look at the camera once I've charged it. Oh, and what I didn't mention was Leaflet in there says we want to hear from you. Share your experiences by leaving a review and claim a free gift. Batteries and external charger, SD card, chest mount and so on. So that certainly looks like worth following up. Right, back in a minute. Well, more likely back in an hour or two once it's charged. Right, well I've got it plugged in and charging, and there's a red light that's appeared at the back, and even without looking at a manual I would confidently assume that once the red light goes out that the camera is charged. I better go and download the manual and find out exactly what else I need to know. Okay, so let's take a closer look at this camera. First off, the case. It's got a kind of slightly rubberized feel about it, which is great, and it's ribbed here, so it actually feels very secure in the hand. Now you might think that's a minor point, but actually some of them are very smooth and shiny, and quite easy to drop. Anyhow, what have we got here then? On the front here we've got a 170 degree wide angle lens, which is pretty standard for action cameras, although you can change the field of view in the settings to a more narrow field of view, but you do lose quality when you do that. You've got a power button, which is also mode, which you can use in conjunction with the up down buttons on the side here to change functions, or of course you can use touchscreen to do the same thing. So on the back there, touchscreen. On this end, microcard slot, card not supplied, maximum 64 gig, and it does need to be U3, they actually specify that. Micro HDMI out, so if you've got the appropriate lead you could play back on your TV, and micro USB for charging and retrieving your files. A couple of little holes there which I suspect are microphone or speaker. On the top you've got shutter stroke Wi-Fi button because it's got a Wi-Fi app. A couple of little holes there, presumably microphone, and in the base you've got a 1/4 inch tripod mount screw, and of course the battery slot which I showed you. So to turn it on, 3-second press, red light on the front shows it's turned on, and touchscreen on the back. Now just to explain these little icons here, you've got a little icon there, started in video mode, duration of video recording time that you've got in default, which is video at 4K 30 frames a second. Microphone is obviously on. Battery level, that's a settings icon, and that's a playback icon. Plus you've got a little blue light there, which you'll see in a minute, flash when I press record. So if I press record, counting down video time, blue light flashing there. Now the great thing about this camera is, and I don't know why all manufacturers don't do it, you've got plenty of indication that it's recording. You've got blue light flashing there, got a little blue light flashing there, you've got red light flashing on the cover, which means if you've got it in the waterproof case and say you're using it on a motorcycle, you can just look in the mirror and see whether you're recording or not. It's such a basic thing, I don't know why other manufacturers don't do it, but Akaso have been around for a while now, so they actually know what features you need on an action camera. Press shutter, stop recording. Now you've got a number of ways to change modes here. You can either short press the power button, that's changed it to stills, as you can see the icon's changed. Press again, you've got this menu. Now you could touch screen, select video, okay, video mode, but let's go back. Or you could go time-lapse video. So now you're in time-lapse, but let's go back to square one, video. Or you can go touch this little symbol down at the bottom here, probably easier if it's not in the case. Select what you want that way, time-lapse mode, stills mode, time-lapse photo, and so on. Now there are so many different settings in this that there's no way I could possibly go through everything here, otherwise this video is going to end up 2 hours long. So you're going to have to explore yourself. So back in video mode now. So in video mode, if I touch the settings button, I've got a menu here that relates to the video setup. So change video resolution, 4K at 60, 4K at 30, 2.7 at 60, and so on and so on. 1080 at 120, 1080 at 60, all the way down to 720 at 60. And no doubt with a 64 gig card you'd probably get, I don't know how many hours recording time at 720, but I tend to stick to 1080 at 60. So come back to that, change it to 1080 at 60. Next thing on this menu is video encoder. Now that is the codec that it uses to package the video. Now H.264 is the most common. H.265 not quite so common, and Sony Vegas Pro that I use to edit doesn't even like it, so I tend to stick to H.264. Incidentally, it records in MOV format, which is not as common as some either, but no big deal. So come back out of that, I leave it H.264. Now, image stabilization, EIS, gyro stabilization, whatever you want to call it. It's always good to have it on. Default is off, I don't know why. So turn that on, come out of that, come out of that. So now, as you can see, I'm in 1080 at 60, and there's a little icon there that's showing, shaky, that I've got EIS turned on. Now, I should mention, although it's got 4K at 60 frames a second, and 1080 goes up to 120, as far as EIS goes, it only works with 4K up to 30 frames a second, and it only works on video with 1080 up to 60. It doesn't work at 1080 120 or 4K at 60 frames a second. That's undoubtedly because of the processing power that it needs to actually work that out. But all the same, it's good EIS, and I've tested it a bit. So just to go through a couple more things here, let's say we are in photo mode. So if you press settings while you're in photo mode, you go through all the photo settings, time lapse, night lapse. I'm not sure what night lapse is, that'd be interesting to see. You've got burst photo, timer delay. It will shoot photos in RAW, which means apparently that you can do more stuff with it when you're editing. I've never used RAW. Photo scene mode, and so on. Obviously the little X takes you out of it. Or actually, just to go back to that, photo mode, settings, or of course you've actually got yet another settings button there. Sounds on or off, BT, that's Bluetooth obviously for the remote, distortion calibration, I'm not sure what that is, I think it's got a fisheye effect corrector. Diving mode, as far as I know, just changes the colour balance, because underwater you get different colour balance. Date stamp, sorry to have to rattle through this. Date stamp you can turn off, and default is off. As I say, just too much here to actually go through everything. Just go through it. Screensaver is how quickly the screen shuts down. Auto power off, power frequency, auto record, white balance. Just leave it in default as it arrives and it will work fine. But I would recommend going in and turning the EIS on. Format the card. As I mentioned, with a new card it's good to format it. Touch format. Yes. Busy. Completed. Incidentally, people ask sometimes on YouTube, how do you delete the files? Well, first off, of course, you plug in the USB cable and you can download them to a PC and delete them from the card that way, or format the card, completely wipes everything off, and you've got a blank card again. So that's what it would have done. Special effects, date stamp, so on and so on. What else can you say? Masses more. But easiest way to change a function, time-lapse photo, time-lapse video. So if you now touch settings while you're in time-lapse and then go into time-lapse interval, time-lapse duration, you can change the time-lapse settings, whether it's a 3-minute, 2-minute duration, so on and so on. As I say, well, for the third time I've said it, there's just too much to explain here. Just go through and test it and try it. I'll go back into video 1080-60. I think that pretty much covers everything I wanted to say about that. Very comprehensive menu. One thing I should mention, I don't know how I can demo it. Let's see. I can demo it by pointing at my phone. You've got a little plus minus there, which means you've actually got digital zoom. I think it's actually up to 8 times digital zoom on here. Yes, that says ×3. If you use digital zoom, you do lose quality, because all you're doing basically is using a smaller and smaller part of the sensor, so the resolution's not as good, but can be useful for some things, I'm sure. So to go back to, well, that's 8 times digital zoom. To go back to normal, come on, get rid of that. You've got playback too, as you saw there. No file, obviously. As far as I can see, you don't get audio with playback. I may be wrong, but I've not heard any. I mentioned the scrolling buttons. You can see the shutter's got a Wi-Fi symbol on it, so obviously, keep moving out of shot there, sorry about that. Obviously, to turn on the Wi-Fi, I'd guess long press of that, yeah, Wi-Fi open. And password, as you can see there, I'm going to come onto the Wi-Fi app next. Password 1234567890. You only ever have to do that when you first install an app. Oh, Wi-Fi off, just touch screen and then turn it off. And to turn off, press 3 seconds. Beep, 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 and it's gone. So you can obviously change some functions while it's in the case by using scrolling buttons, or probably easier still, change it and then put it in the case. But very comprehensive, as you'd expect from a manufacturer like Akaso that have been around for a while. The other thing is, of course, you do get things like support and firmware updates from these companies. I've seen it for around 140, 125 pounds. So for a 4K action camera with EIS is a good price, especially with the remote. I'll have a quick look at the remote as well after the Wi-Fi app. No, in fact, I'll have a quick look at the remote now. Okay, so let's take a look at the remote. First off, turn on the camera and then press and hold the down button to turn on the Bluetooth. Press and hold. BT on, connecting. I've already done this once, so it's actually paired, but press and hold the remote button for 3 seconds. Light is on. Oh, before when I did this it said scanning. Looks to me like it might be connected. Let's see, let's just press photo. Yes, what do you know? Press photo and it took a photo. Press video. Switch to video and it started recording. Press it again. Stop. Or apparently you can use voice commands, although it doesn't seem to work too well for me. Action, photo. It worked last time. Action, photo. And what do you know, it actually worked that time. Action, photo. Action, photo. And it did again. I don't know if you can hear the click. Action, start video. For some reason it doesn't like my voice, but there are 4 commands: action, start video, action, stop shooting, action, photo, and action. It worked that time. I'm not saying it fast enough. Action, stop shooting, action, start video. Oh well. I think I'd probably prefer pressing the buttons. I have never found an action camera. Oh, I have actually, the Xiaomi YI2. I've found very few action cameras where voice control works, but there you go. It's much easier to press the button, as you can see. And if you want to come out of it, just press and hold for 3 seconds. Like so. Turn off the remote. I think I mentioned this won't be waterproof. They never are. It might be splash proof, I'm not even sure about that, so I'll put a little note on the screen, but more likely splash proof. And of course press this to turn off the Bluetooth, or you'll just be wasting power really. BT off. Right, well hopefully I've covered that. Nice Velcro strap here. Could be useful if you're doing something like paragliding, whatever, and the camera's on the helmet. You don't get feedback between this and the camera though, so you wouldn't actually know whether the thing's on or off. But certainly windsurfing, you could see the light if it was in a waterproof case. Quite handy to be able to just press a button on your wrist. Camera could be mounted somewhere looking at you. Yeah, good bit of kit. Right, and now we will look at the Wi-Fi app. Let's hope. Perhaps I should read the manual before we do that. Right, here we go. Wi-Fi app. Okay, so the Wi-Fi app. I googled Akaso DV in Google Play Store and I've installed it. I'm sure you know how to do that. So let's do this real time. Obviously, first thing to do is turn the Wi-Fi on the camera. Press and hold the shutter. Wi-Fi open. Password is 12345678890, which is standard. No doubt you can change that, but there's no security risk in that. Then go into the network and Wi-Fi settings on your phone and select the V50 Akaso Elite. There it is. Password, show password 12345678890. Connect. Now my phone always says, do I really want to connect, because there's no internet there. And there it goes. Do I want to connect? Yeah, connect. Oh, I think something happened then. Yeah, it worked that time. Hey, what do you know? Just goes to show, if you persevere. So what can you do with this app? Well, one thing you can always do with Wi-Fi apps on cameras is stop start video, which basically means you can plant this somewhere probably 10-20 meters away, depends on the Wi-Fi signal from your phone to the camera. Monitor something like wildlife, and when the action happens you can stop start video. Bing. Now you've also got settings here. Pretty much change the settings that you can change on the camera. EIS on and off, white balance, date stamp, format, blah blah blah, noise reduction, and so on. Tells me there that I'm in 60 frames per second FHD, which is probably full HD or something. Tells you the signal. Battery life, gallery there. Ah, video. Ah, there you go. This is more interesting. And no doubt you can download the video to your phone and play it. Here, what about this? This is the exciting video that's in my test clips of the supermarket. But actually I must say that is remarkably clear and sharp. Very good camera, very good lens, great quality video. Pause that, come out of that. So you can download, if you were doing an action sport somewhere, shall we say kayaking, and you had a waterproof tablet, you could actually download and look at your footage while you were on the scene there, which would be great actually. So photo or video there in the gallery. I'm not sure what that does. Oh, that's another little menu there. Photo. Oh, that changes it from photo mode to video mode, time lapse, self timer, photo burst, and so on. So all in all, despite the negative reviews on Google Play, actually there's nothing wrong with this app. It's probably people's phones. So don't believe everything you see on Google Play, or don't believe all the reviews you see. So and to disconnect, oh there you go, I just press back and disconnect. Okay, disconnect, and there you go. So that was the Wi-Fi app. I'll turn the camera off. Actually, obviously red light there means the Wi-Fi is still active, so let's just press shutter and that turns the Wi-Fi off, because of course if the Wi-Fi is on all the time it's going to be disabling the camera for normal use, but it's also going to be using battery. So turn the camera off, 3-second press, and then we'll head over and look at some test clips. So don't go away. Okay, the test clips are coming up, but just a few words from me first. I've had the camera for a few days now and had a chance to get a few test clips. No flying, I'm afraid, but too windy for that. But there is some motorbiking, some clips around the town, and some mountain biking. And with a bit of luck, I'll tag some night driving in at the end to see how well it performs in the dark. So first off, the first clip is a motorcycling clip. This is how I actually mount two standoffs, one that way, so that it sticks out on the side of the helmet. But what I wanted to mention was, I noticed when I stopped the first time that this was steaming up. It was a pretty cold morning, so I went back and changed from the solid back to the open back, which of course gives a bit of ventilation, stops it steaming up. I just thought I'd show you how you change the backs, because it is pretty easy. If you look on here somewhere, oh, there it is. If you look on there, there's a slot here, and it's just a question of popping it out, popping one out. And if you're diving and you actually wanted it waterproof, going out motorcycling in the rain, you just clip it in like so, just like that. So I thought I'd explain that. You'll see on the first clip it starts to mist up, and then after that, with the open back, it was clear. But generally speaking, results from it have been great, and it compares well with any of the best cameras I've tested over the last few years. Most of the clips are at 1080 60 frames a second with gyro stabilization, EIS on. There are a couple of 4K clips, but for one, I don't own a 4K monitor. For two, I don't own a 4K TV, and to be honest, I don't know many people that do really use 4K apart from maybe broadcasters. But there's a section there where I've zoomed in to see how well the lens performs and the difference between 4K res and 1080 60 res. There's also a noise reduction feature in this, and I tried that at one point when I was down by the seaside and it was windy. Be interesting to see how well that works. But all in all, recommend the camera. Good results, good all round. You'll get some support from Akaso, good range of accessories, and I had no problems whatsoever with it. So that's that. Hope you enjoy the test clips. If you've enjoyed this video, maybe you'd like to click subscribe down there and give me a like. And if it's a boring wet afternoon and you've got nothing to do, check out my channel. There's paragliding, paramotoring, sailing, some wildlife, and all kinds of other rubbish on there, so it might keep you amused for a while. So that's it for now. Thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you again soon. And finally, here are the test clips. Well, there's some nice detail here. If you look at the rigging and the windows on the houses around Paynton Harbour. This is at 1080/60 with the EIS gyro stabilisation on. Now I'll just do another shot here, but keeping it steady at 1080/60, and I'll zoom in and then I'll do a comparison with the detail you get when you zoom in on 4K, which should be quite a bit better. Right, so here's the same scene but at 4K, 30 frames a second, with EIS still on. Right, and here's another little bit of 4K. This is my lovely old 1978 Honda. Touchwood, still going strong. And here's a bit more 4K, 30 frames a second. Different view of Paynton Harbour. As you can see, the tide is out. Let's see what it looks like into the sun. Reduction turned on. Having said that, the wind's just dropped a bit. It was gusting. That's coming back. I wonder how different that is. Wind noise reduction. Oh, nettles and shorts don't mix. Okay, so this is pretty dark through here and it's uphill. I prefer the downhill bits. This should be quite challenging for an action camera because it's dark and then it's light. And now this is a bit smoother, some tarmac. This is the bridleway actually, you are allowed to cycle it. And this is 4K 30 frames a second with EIS on. Lovely and smooth. Again though, a lot of light and shade. It'll be interesting to see how it deals with this. Oh, and this has actually got a wind noise reduction settings too, and I haven't got that set, but I'd imagine when you're doing this kind of speed, a little bit of speed, that there's some wind noise, and it's actually a windy day. If you can see it on the trees. Do you know where I find the white spirit, please?
White spirit. It's just on the back wall, along the.
On the back. Round the back of that. Oh, I see. That's where the paint is. Thanks a lot.
Okay.